Shopify grows your business no matter how far or big you grow. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling your fans' next favorite shirt or an exclusive piece of podcast merch, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in.
Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. Some runners just really love to race. There's a half marathon here, a marathon there, and maybe another marathon a few weeks later. Ooh, and that local 5K is so much fun. Let's add that in. How about a half in every single state? Awesome. These runners collect race medals like Pokemon cards. They have enough free race shirts to clothe all the kids at the community college. Racing is fun, social, and for some, happily addictive. Most of these runners know that they are sacrificing some quality over quantity, but they're okay with that. On the other end of the racing spectrum, there are those who put the big race on the calendar and put their noses to the grindstone. Smaller races can disrupt specific training for the goal race, so they either skip them entirely or they choose their tune-ups very strategically. I'm not here to tell you that one way is better than the other, but if you're ready to give yourself the very best chance to do your very best at your goal race, you gotta have a plan. Racing shorter distances in your build-up to your goal race can give you a performance advantage if you do it right. Welcome to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic, and my mission is to help you improve your running, your mindset, and your life with science-backed training and plant-based nutrition. Today's episode is all about tune-up races. You'll learn when to add a tune-up race for maximum benefit and minimum risk, how to run your tune-up race to best prepare you for your goal race, and alternative ways to use tune-ups in your schedule. Before we get into the details, if you are listening to this on the day that it comes out, December 7th, 2023, it's not too late to join me for my first sprint session. I'll be hosting live 30-minute coaching sessions on the topics that you need the most, from speed work and intervals, pacing and strategy, race fueling and nutrition, and more. The first session is all about how to plan your training and racing schedule for next year so you're training smart and peaking at the perfect time for your goals, including exactly how to schedule your tune-up races. If you've missed it live, you can still get lifetime access to the recording and course materials to go through whenever it works for you. All my coaching athletes and PR team members will get these sessions included with their membership. So if you're on the fence about joining, now's the perfect time. Join the team at theplantedrunner.com/group today. If you just want the sprint sessions, they are really affordable, especially if you bundle all 6 of them together. Learn more and reserve your seat at theplantedrunner.com/running-year. That's theplantedrunner.com/running-year. Of course, the link is in the show notes. And finally, one last reminder about our monthly Apple Podcast review contest. December is still up for grabs. All you have to do is write an Apple Podcast review of the show, and one lucky winner will receive a copy of my book, The Planted Runner, Running Your Best with Plant-Based Nutrition. Write a review today, and it could be you. There are several strategies for scheduling and executing tune-up races, and when done right, they can enhance your fitness and boost your confidence for the big day. But if they're not done right, they can add extra risk and unnecessary stress to your schedule. You might not recover in time to do your best for the race you really care about. So what exactly is a tune-up race? It's any race that happens in the weeks or months before your main goal race. It's a planned part of your buildup, and it's in service of your more important race. It's usually a shorter distance than your goal race, but it doesn't always have to be. Now, if you just love to race and every race you run is your goal race, then I wouldn't say you're running tune-up races at all. I suppose you're not really running goal races either if everything is your top priority, but that's okay. Do what brings you joy. When we talk about a tune-up race, it's one that we are running as part of our training for the more important race. How we choose to run those tune-ups will depend on what we need to know or work on during our training. We might deliberately run it slower than we're capable of. We might choose to run it all out. Or we might choose to run some kind of combination of that to address a specific concern or a weakness. I'll get into the details for each strategy a little bit later. The two main reasons you want to run a tune-up race is for race practice and as a fitness check. If you've heard the phrase, nothing new on race day, this doesn't apply to tune-up races. A tune-up is the perfect time to test out new gear, fuels, drinks, and your entire race morning routine so that you know it works in a race environment. Even more important, you'll learn what doesn't work, so you have time to ditch the duds without ruining your real race. It's far better to work out the kinks and misfires on a race that you don't care as much about. So if your tune-up race is a disaster, you can learn from it and adjust your strategy. Take fueling, for example. Even if you've been practicing with your fuel and training, it can be a completely different experience to your tummy when you're running hard. You might find that your favorite gel tastes terrible, or you can't chew your gummies when you're breathing hard. A gear test is another thing you can learn from a tune-up race. That cute new sports bra or those new compression socks might literally rub you the wrong way, and it's far better to learn that in a shorter race. To get the most out of a tune-up race, you want to treat it as a dress rehearsal for the big day as much as possible. That means getting up at the same time, eating the same breakfast, doing the same shakeout run, visualizing the course, and all the other details that you will go through. By practicing everything to the tiniest detail, you can be calmer and more relaxed on the big day because you've done this before. Besides race practice, a tune-up can tell you a lot about your fitness. If you can easily cruise through a half marathon a month before your marathon, that tells you that you're probably in good shape to run around that pace twice as long. But if you hop on the struggle bus at mile 4, that probably tells you that your goal pace is a bit too aggressive. If you are using a 5K to prepare for a 10K goal race and you run it at 10K pace, the effort should still feel comfortably hard. If there's no way you could run twice as long at that pace, or if it felt way too easy, it's time to consider adjusting your goal. There are two main ways to run a tune-up race, and then there's a third hybrid strategy. I'll explain them all right after this. I'll get back to the episode in just a minute, but first I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about nutrition. You are an athlete, and that means most standard nutrition advice isn't meant for you. While most Americans are struggling with trying to eat less and move more, for most runners, it's the opposite. When you're training hard, getting in enough to support your training is the first goal. Getting high-quality nutrition at the right time is the second. And that's why I love Neurify by Previnex. It's the only plant-based protein powder that uses high-quality brown rice and organic yellow peas that's smooth enough to dissolve in just water. It's so delicious that even my teenagers are blending it into smoothies for breakfast every day. So yeah, we go through a lot of Neurify around here. I'm happy they're starting the day off right with a perfectly balanced meal, and they're happy Mom lets them make a milkshake for breakfast. Here's the cool thing. My friends at Previnex are giving the Planted Runner listeners 15% off your first order of Neurify Plus with the coupon code PR15. So head to www.previnex.com and use my code PR15 to get started today. That's previnex.com and use my code PR15.
Greetings from Evergreen Podcasts. We're rolling out a listener survey, and we want to hear from you. The information in the survey will help us gather statistics and in turn make our shows more appealing to advertisers. I know most people don't like ads, but this is one of the only ways our shows make money and help keep their lights on. We promise it will only take a few minutes, but the impact on our podcasts will be tremendous. As a token of our appreciation, we'll randomly select one lucky participant each month to win an exclusive merchandise package from Evergreen Podcasts. Head to evergreenpodcast.com/listener-survey to help a show and possibly get some free stuff for doing so. We can't thank you enough for the support. Now back to the show.
There is no hood like parenthood. When you meet a fellow parent, you just kind of get each other on a whole nother level. Hi, I'm Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm a former CNN journalist, mom of 3, including twins, and host of That's Total Mom Sense, the podcast. I interview changemakers on their life lessons, legacy, and superpower of intuition, aka their mom sense and dad sense. I've had some pretty amazing parents on my show.
Hey, what's up? I'm Kelly Rowland.
Hi, this is Chelsea Clinton. It's me, Bobby Brown. Can't wait to share my story.
Episodes release every Thursday. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Join my tribe at thatstotalmomsense.com and follow me on Instagram at Kanika Chadda Gupta. I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you.
Welcome back to The Planted Runner. I'm Coach Claire Bartholic. There are 3 general ways to execute a tune-up race. The first plan is to race the tune-up as hard as you can. The benefits of the all-out strategy is that it gives you a good assessment of how you deal with racing at your highest level. Racing hard is hard, as it forces you to stay under control at the beginning, turn the heat up in the middle, and then race your heart out when your body is fighting for you to stop. If you can knock out the best half marathon of your life, you've got a really good shot of a great marathon in the weeks to come. Even better, you might walk away with a new personal record and a new confidence boost. There are lots of online calculators that can convert your race distances to help you predict what you can race at any other common distance, but be sure to take them with a grain of salt as they are not accurate for every race or every runner. The downsides of an all-out tune-up race is that there is a little more risk of injury, it's harder to recover from, and it's less specific to the longer race. Let me take those one by one. The more time you spend in your red zone or the all-out effort zone, the higher your risk of injury. Too much speed can come at a price, and for many runners, that potential cost is too high before an important race. The other cost of all-out is that you'll need more time to recover than you would need had you run it slower. That can mean a few extra days off or of easy running, potentially sacrificing a more race-specific workout. And speaking of specifics, if you're racing an all-out half to prep for a marathon, for example, you're not practicing marathon pace. Yes, running at all paces at times is great for all distances, but the closer you get to race day, the more like your goal race you want your workouts to become. To avoid the downsides of all-out racing, the second strategy for your tune-up is to run it at your goal race pace. So if you're tuning up with a 5K for a 10K race, for example, you'll run the 5K at your slower 10K pace. This will help you practice pacing and control at the actual pace you plan to be running, which provides excellent feedback for you and your coach. Not only is running race pace more specific, it's easier. That allows you to recover more quickly and jump right back into training. The only downside to this plan is that you're not practicing the all-out feeling that you should feel at the end of an all-out race. You can get close to this in training, of course, but if you have struggled with not racing your hardest in the past, you might want to try it in a race that you don't care about. Go into the race giving yourself permission to blow up, and whatever happens, happens. You might end up surprising yourself. And actually, there is another downside of racing your tune-up at a slower pace. It doesn't feel like racing. Can your ego handle not racing your best? Are you going to feel bad when looking at your results, knowing you were holding back the whole time? Many runners really struggle with this, especially when they're always wanting to do their best. It takes control and confidence in your training to purposely underrace. But if you can do it, it might just be the best thing for your training. But racing all out or racing goal pace are not the only ways to race a tune-up. There's several other strategies. Some runners love to throw a 5K or a 10K race in the middle of a long run during marathon training. It breaks up the boredom, you get to run with other people, and you also get the support of the aid stations. You can choose to race it hard or not, and depending on where it is in your training cycle, you might not need any more recovery time than you normally would from a harder long run. An advanced technique is to use a race as a part of a longer speed workout. You could race a 5K, run a couple of easy miles, and then run another hard 5K before cooling down. Again, you get the support and the energy of the race environment during what might normally be a grueling workout on your own. And finally, one of my favorite ways to execute a tune-up is with a specific plan to work on something that you've struggled with in the past. Let's say you've always gone out too fast in every race you've ever run, causing you to crash and burn by the end. Don't feel bad. Most people do this until they learn not to. Deliberately practice not doing this in your tune-up by creating a strict pace guide for the first 25% of the race. If your tune-up is a half marathon, tell yourself that you must run deliberately slow, perhaps 30 seconds slower than marathon pace for the first 3 miles or 5K. After that, the race is yours to run as you wish. Or perhaps your issue is the opposite. You're good at pacing, but you struggle with a solid final kick. Your tune-up strategy is to run very easy the first 75% of the race, and then crank it down as fast as you can for the final 25%. So ask yourself what went wrong at your last race, and where can you improve? That will tell you how to run your tune-up. Okay, I've told you why and how to run a tune-up. The next big question is when. Race too early in your cycle, and it won't tell you much about your fitness months from now. Race too close to your goal race, and you risk leaving all your energy in a race that you don't care about. Let's go over the most common race distances and when a tune-up is a good idea. For the 5K, unless you're lucky enough to have a mile race schedule, your best bet is another 5K. Plan to race one a few seconds per mile slower than your real goal pace 2 to 4 weeks ahead of time. Another great strategy is practicing a cut down, running each mile a few seconds faster and finishing strong. 10K racers can put a 5K or a 5-miler on the calendar 2 to 4 weeks ahead of your goal race. Whatever pacing strategy you choose, it should feel at least comfortably hard, yet not totally exhausting. For the half marathon, you'll want to start moving back those tune-ups earlier to allow more recovery time. I recommend planning a 10K tune-up about 3 to 4 weeks out. If you want to add a second earlier tune-up to give you a baseline fitness check, that should be planned in the 6 to 8 weeks before your goal race. And finally, for the marathon, I like to schedule a half marathon tune-up 4 to 6 weeks before your race. It is possible to race a half 3 weeks away from the marathon, but that is usually best reserved for your longest and hardest run. If that's also the best time for your tune-up, it's better to keep that one at no faster than marathon pace to minimize injury and recovery risks. Feel free to add on an extra long cool down so your total mileage for the day ends up where you need your long run to be. You can also sprinkle in some 5Ks or 10Ks earlier in both a marathon and a half marathon buildup, but be careful with this strategy. You don't want those other races to distract you from your real goal or take you away from workouts that are better suited to your goal race. Tune-up races can be a fun and useful part of preparing to race your best on your big race day. There are several strategies for executing them, so be sure you know what you're trying to work on and what you're hoping to improve before the gun goes off. And remember, a successful tune-up race doesn't guarantee a successful race, just like a disastrous one doesn't mean you'll fall apart on your goal race. But practice does make progress as long as you learn from it. And if nothing else, you'll get another race medal to add to your collection. And now it's time for the Mental Strength Minute. Fortify your mind in 60 seconds or less. Today's topic is bad weather. There is nothing that makes you feel tough and strong than going for a run in bad weather. The layer of challenge and discomfort from cold, wet, snowy, hot, or rainy runs can teach you can handle anything. Most people, even many runners, actively avoid training outside in bad weather. It's not fun. But when you purposely add this mental challenge, you come back from the run just a little tougher and more confident in yourself. Of course, I'm not advocating running in dangerous conditions, and you need to dress appropriately. But changing your mindset about bad weather can change everything. Thank you for listening to The Planted Runner, part of the Evergreen Podcasts Network. Don't forget that you can win a copy of my book for leaving an Apple Podcast review, so be sure to write yours right after your run today. Reviews are the #1 way to boost this show's reach, and it's a great way to tell me what you'd like to hear next, because I read every single one. Have a great run today.
Sports stars. They're like superheroes.
But they're actually real.
Which is why we've made a podcast about them. You see,
they've all got a story.
But too many of these stories were cut short.
Kobe Bryant,
Payne Stewart,
Flojo,
Phil Hughes,
Justin Fashanu.
We're writing episodes about all of them.
And sadly, many more.
Death of a Sports Star, a new series from Crowd Network.